Welcome to Sex Help for Smart People. I'm your host, Dr. Laura Juergens, former science professor turned somatic sexologist and intimacy coach. This podcast is all about using evidence-based practices to help high-achieving women and their partners of all genders get the affection, connection, and great sex you want. So let's get at it. Hey everyone, I'm so glad you're here. This is episode 1, and today is an intro to what this podcast is all about, who I am and why I'm doing it, some issues common for smart, successful women and their partners, and the approach that has worked for me and many women and couples I have coached to solve those problems effectively. I'm also going to wrap up with a quick exercise to help you get started. So let's dive in. So first up today is who am I and why am I here? And I'm doing this podcast for all of you because there are way too many women out there who have worked super hard to get where they are in life, and yet at the same time just feel so unfulfilled and disempowered when it comes to sex and relationships. If that's you, you'll know it can be a really big struggle trying to find help that works. And some of you and your partners have spent years trying to going to therapy to talk about your past, trying out the latest article on sex positions. Oh my God, why are there so many articles on sex positions? Because they don't have real help to give you. Things like asking medical doctors who, side note, the vast majority of them get about 5 hours of sexuality training. Or maybe you've just avoided the whole topic until it seems hopeless. And lots of people do that. They just give up on getting the sex they want, give up on trying to get the affection and connection they want in their partnerships. And then they reach midlife and we blame our low desire on hormones when we haven't been getting the sex we really needed for decades. And what I'm saying is it's not always hormones. You probably figured that out. So many women are feeling just frustrated and bad. And often that bad gets turned against ourselves. Like we think there's something wrong with us, like we aren't sexy, or we're not good enough, or we're not doing it right. We might feel disconnected or bored and really guilty about that, or like we're letting somebody down. A lot of times women are having sex out of obligation and all while feeling exhausted, trying so hard all the time in the rest of their lives. And so if one of those people is you are why I'm doing this podcast. You and your well-intentioned partner, it's not your fault, and it's not your well-intentioned partner's fault. But I've been there, and I know it really sucks, and I know it's really easy to kind of ignore the problem and hope it will go away or just try to work harder on it, because we're high-achieving women. We're used to trying to work hard on things and solve them with diligence and, thoughtful productivity. And unfortunately, that shit doesn't work when it comes to sex and relationships. I know, because I tried for a really long time. But you can get out of that place. I help people get out of that place all the time. And there are really good methods. They're just not about hard work. They're actually about playful relaxation, which can be hard for those of us who are really driven career-wise to access. But when we do, it's so rewarding and it really helps the entirety of our lives. So the solutions are about getting in our bodies. They're somatic solutions. So somatic just means body-based. And most of these fly under the radar because they aren't flashy products or pills or sex rooms. They're not commodities, right? They're skills and exercises that build those skills. And unfortunately, doctors don't know about them because they don't have the training. And frankly, medical misogyny means the medical establishment has given fuck all about women's needs for decades. So there can be great doctors out there, but they are maybe hard to find. They may not have the right training. There's so many taboos around sex and sexuality that even doing exercises with people or showing people things about touch and about their bodies can feel really outside the boundaries of most professions. So it's not outside the boundaries of my profession. I don't do genital touch with people, but I work with people all the time, giving them actual body-based exercises and even playing with a little touch in sessions and teaching couples how to do that so that you can actually learn and practice and build confidence, right? The great thing here is that the answers are all actually inside you. You have them already. It's really about getting all the socialized crap out of your way, rediscovering your body, discovering your own unique desires and turn-ons, discovering your psychological and physical arousal needs specific to your body and mind, uncovering what's in the way of claiming those, any sort of shame. We got to get rid of that shit. And uncovering what's in the way of effective communication with partners. And there's a lot of socialization for women that keeps us from feeling entitled to things like boundaries and asking for what we want and being sexual in the first place. So the other thing we do in my practice is help you practice all these things so you feel confident and comfortable. And that happens through practice and play. I'm going to give you some of that here in little tiny tidbits of practices that you can do. We're going to talk about how to find all this stuff for yourself. It's normal not to know how to do it on your own. And I needed help. Pretty much everyone I've met needs help to find these answers. And that's why I got coaching. And when I discovered coaching and how effective it was, somatic coaching, I decided to become a coach and help other people. Because I used to feel just like you, like I somehow should know how to do sex and relationships. Nearly all my clients, regardless of gender, start with the same wrong idea. It's normal not to magically know how to do sex and relationships. We live in a culture that is super dysfunctional and shaming when it comes to sex and relationships. We have sex ed that says absolutely nothing about women's pleasure. We have a culture that tells girls and women our whole worth is about how much men want us and how well we please other people. So of course we feel confused and unsure when it comes to sex. And of course we don't magically know how to do sex and relationships. And neither do men, by the way, which I'm pretty sure you figured out whether you partner with men or not. They just get a whole heap of other wrong-headed messages drummed into their heads. What we're doing is we're going to bring compassion and myth busting to all that stuff. We're going to take a critical look at gender socialization and how we can find our own true selves and each other underneath all that bullshit. Side note, you've probably figured out I'm going to swear a bunch. So if you're on board with that, this is your place. If you're not, it's probably not your place. We're going to talk really frankly about developing relational, sensual, and sexual skills, getting out of our heads and into our bodies. And I'm super passionate about this. You could probably tell because it makes me really sad and angry that people don't know that there are effective ways to learn how to get all these things. I was really so happy when I discovered them, but also sad that I spent so many years of my life, ever since a really rough puberty, not knowing the joy in my body, the physical pleasure in this wonderful soft animal you live in, right? You deserve this. This is your birthright. You deserve to feel safe to be exactly you with your partner, safe to have boundaries, safe to do playful exploration without any obligation for what comes next, any obligation to, fulfill somebody else's desires at the expense of your own. You deserve deep connection. You deserve good communication. And all those things are available and not worth giving up on. So my day-to-day work is helping women and couples through somatic coaching. And this podcast is how I'm making that work accessible to more people like you. I know that it can be really hard to reach out for help, even when you can find it. It can be hard to find in the first place, too. So I'm here to talk about all this stuff, give concrete help, let you know how to get more help, what kinds of help are out there. And I want to share what I've learned from my own journey and from coaching a whole spectrum of successful women and couples. I'm also here because it's what I love to do And I used to be a really high achiever on the outside, a successful tenure track academic scientist who was told I should, go up early for tenure kind of thing. When I didn't actually feel great in academia, I didn't feel connected to my body. I was really stuck in my head. I was unsure at home what I even wanted sexually, let alone how to ask for it. I felt really challenged talking about it, even with my loving partner of many years. And I tried talk therapy for a long time, but it didn't help. I needed more practical, solution-oriented tools and skills for helping me connect better with myself and connect better with my partner. And when I found them, I knew I wanted to help others find them too. So I left academia, which also allowed me to leave a very patriarchal culture that was hard for me to take because it did perpetuate a lot of sexual violence. And I jumped into pursuing training in somatic sexology and effective practice-oriented coaching. So that's what I do. And I hope you'll join me here each week and we'll be on this ride together. Okay, so let's talk about how this is going to go. We're going to focus on fun, playful, relaxing approaches to solving common sexual issues for successful women and their partners. We don't need more hard work. Everybody has enough in this culture, and you don't have to buy a bunch of stuff. We're going to talk about how to build interpersonal connection with yourself, and all the juicy, sexy stuff. We're going to talk about what we all should have learned about loving ourselves and each other well. And we're going to talk specifically about releasing shame and ways to do that. Because none of this is your fault or means you're broken in any way if you have challenges in sex and relationships. So each week we'll dive into an issue, clear out the bullshit, and then I'll give you some sort of tiny play-based exercise or practice that will help you actually implement change in your life. A few topics that are going to come up soon. So episodes that are coming up next are different tactics to get out of your head, which is a really big one. And we'll start with a tiny taster today to connect you with your body. How to unload shame and judgments about yourself. We'll debunk what's actual biology versus all the pseudoscience and misinformation. We'll talk about gender socialization and how it hurts all of us, regardless of our gender or sex assigned at birth. We'll talk about navigating mismatched desire in couples, understanding arousal versus desire, and how to discover yours in all their different forms. We'll cover obligation sex and sexy consent, how to increase affection and flirting in your relationship, dating issues when you're smart and successful, what to do when you're super busy and exhausted, and different types of sex and intimacy professional help and what they're good for. So there's a lot of sex professionals out there you may not have heard of. I want to share that with you. So all that and more is coming up. And if you have specific topics you want, feel free to reach out. You can find my contact info and free resources on my website at laurajurgens.com. It's LauraJurgens.com. And today we're going to wrap up with an easy exercise to help you start connecting with your sexual body. So here's what you do. Set a timer on your phone for 3 times per day when you know you have 1 minute. And you're going to take that 1 minute to connect with your vulva or your pussy or your yoni, whatever you call her, or your penis if you have one of those instead, or any other genital configuration. You use the term that works for you. I'm going to say vulva here today. And what I mean by connect is feel how your vulva feels from the inside of your body. You don't have to touch to feel your genitals. Just bring awareness and see if you can notice aliveness there. Any sensations that are there for you from the inside of your body. Now, look, this can be really hard at first. So just be patient, take a minute, see if you can sense that you have a vulva. There's some aliveness there. Direct your breath there from the inside. You can even take a couple really gentle pelvic squeezes of your pelvic floor to see If that helps you notice the sensations there, and just notice how it feels to be aware of your vulva and if that's different from how you normally are. Do it 3 times a day for a minute each if you can. And remember, being an adult, a B plus is actually perfect, right? Like we have other things to do and we forget things, and that's okay. So just do what you can. You can do it more than 3 times a day. See if you could at least do it once or twice for the next 2 weeks. And as you do it over time, it'll start to feel a little bit easier and you'll start to feel some of the benefits. And there are a lot of benefits. So what this does, this really simple exercise does, is it starts increasing your mind-body connection with your genitals, strengthening the neurological circuitry between two of your biggest sex organs, your brain and your pussy. That makes feeling pleasure and arousal easier. And on the more spiritual side, being connected with your genitals is incredibly grounding, energizing, and empowering. Most of us spend all day up in our heads, cut off from our sexuality. And lots of professional women just feel, like we have to deny our sexuality in order to be taken seriously. What that does is it just cuts us off from ourselves. And, fuck that. You get to be a whole person, and being connected with your full, powerful sexual self is your right. And it's all internal. Nobody else needs to know anything about it. It's not for them. It's for you. So I invite you to spend a little time over the next couple weeks just gently bringing awareness and connecting with your genitals. That's all today, and I look forward to being with you next week and diving into our next topics. If this podcast was helpful for you, please consider going to Apple Podcasts or Spotify and leaving a 5-star review. Not only do I really appreciate your time doing that, but 5-star reviews really boost the show visibility, which helps people just like you who need it be able to find it. Thank you so much. I'll see you here next week.